Your Honor, I object.
And why is that?
Because it's devastating to my case.
Overruled.
Good call.
Mr. Chairman, thank you so much for being on the program again. So, listen, I'm a big-time Jurassic Park fan, okay? I like raptors as much as anyone. Does this raptor excuse, does this add up? You have a banking background. Does this make sense to you, or are you now going to, put away this evidence?
No, Byron Donalds was exactly correct in what he said on the Laura Ingraham show. Look, this loan card they continue to play, it's not adding up. If you were making loans, you would have evidence of money you loaned, and then you would have the evidence that we have that you were repaid. So we have where they claim they were repaid, but we don't have evidence where they ever made any loans. And, they've tried to show the press that the two big checks to Joe Biden were loan repayments because, look, here, it says it in the loan memo. Somebody wrote in an ink pen. Loan repayment, case closed. I mean, you saw the email we released last week was from a bank examiner. And they asked the same thing. They said, we're going to have to issue a suspicious activity report if you don't answer this question. What was that $5 million for? I mean, you have an investment company with no investments. And what exactly was the $5 million? And he said it was a loan. And they're like, a loan? Okay, well, we're going to have records in our file on you from the bank examiners, so we'll need copies of the loan documents. They say, oh, we don't have any. So we're to believe that at the same time China and a bunch of other countries around the world were loaning Hunter Biden money in addition to all the other wires that they're going to claim are loans in this deposition, but he didn't have enough credit to get a car loan. And you made the point perfectly in your opening monologue here. I mean, how many cars did they have? And I have to help my son out and my daughter that they're in college and in high school, and I give them money, but nobody ever pays me back. Joe Biden would give them money if they're telling the truth, which I don't believe they are, and China would pay Joe back. So I mean, what a benefit to a parent to be able to loan your family $250,000, knowing that they're going to pay it back through the influence peddling scheme from China.
I'm speaking to my wife right now. Kate, if the kids are watching the show, please turn the audio off. We're considering, Mr. Chairman, getting a remote control car, right? One of those little cars for my 3-year-old daughter. And I'm not going to get her 3 of them, right? I think that would be major overkill as a 3-year-old. I think it'd be overkill as a 50-year-old, which is the age Hunter Biden was when all this was going on. It just, again, the dog doesn't hunt.
It doesn't hunt. I mean, it's not difficult to prove a loan. Even if you don't have loan documentation for whatever reason, you should have a copy of a check going out, since we have copies of checks coming in.
Yes.
But they don't. And, at the end of the day, the more evidence we produced, and it's been a lot in the last 4 weeks, starting with that $250,000 wire from China that was sent to Joe Biden's house, that they claimed that too was a loan. I mean, the more evidence we produce, the more the media attacks me and the Oversight Committee for our credible, transparent investigation. When we claim they got a wire from China, we show the bank records, and bank records don't lie. But the media, the Washington Post, they remind me of that Netflix movie, Don't Look Up. I mean, that's what essentially Philip Bump and the Washington Post are saying. Don't look up. Don't believe those bank records. Comer, I mean, he's making this up. It doesn't. It's Russian disinformation. I mean, it's a joke. I mean, you can't get over 50% polling on any issue in America, as divided as America is right now. And almost 70% of the Americans believe that Joe Biden broke the law with his family's shady business schemes. We are the only committee in Congress that are looking at his financial transactions and asking the tough question, being transparent with the American people, delivering every day on more evidence. And yet we get attacked by the so-called fact checkers and investigative journalists in this town. I mean, it's a joke, and the American people see through it.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Philip Bump. I love that clip of him responding like a vampire to holy water when the Biden crimes are brought up, like the demonstrable evidence of Biden's lies about his son receiving money? Because now it's clear that they received money and that the money came from China. And so can you explain to me, you, again, Mr. Chairman, you have a banking background. I don't. You don't want me to do your taxes. You'll wind up in jail. I'm really glad I got a guy for that. But so explain it to me like you would a child. How do I get a loan from China? Because I'd love $5 million, right? That would be awesome. That'd be great. If the holidays are coming up, like inflation, can you please explain to me very clearly and very concisely, how does a regular American get an interest-free $5 million loan from China? Because that sounded pretty good right now.
You don't. If you got a wire from China, I don't care who you are, me, you, Bill Gates, it doesn't matter. You would get a call from your bank immediately saying, what exactly is this $5 million wire from China into your account? Because the banks know if they're, American companies based in China or companies owned by the Chinese Communist Party. That's easy to figure out, especially with the bank we're talking about in particular here. And, if the answer is it's a part of the Chinese Communist Party, you have to show loan documentation. If you don't, then the bank's going to notify Treasury of a suspicious wire transfer, suspicious activity report. We believe our client could be violating the law. We asked what it was. They said it was a loan, but couldn't provide loan documents, AKA we don't believe them. We believe our client is lying. Please investigate, and please note to the bank examiners that we did exactly what the law said, even though this was the son of the president of the United States. They called him a politically exposed person. They mentioned who his father was in the email. We see an email from the bank catching this wire right off the bat and realizing, look, nobody from America is going to get a loan from China. And if they did, they would have loan documentation. So the fact that he claims he's is a financial advisor and has a company with no investment, this is some type of scam. It could be blackmail. It could be a national security risk. So, it's not hard to prove. This money from China was either a gift, a bribe, which would be a gift, or it was payback for lobbying, for being a foreign agent. And if that's the case, he's an unregistered foreign agent, which is what the judge in Delaware said he was when she kicked that sweetheart plea deal out. That's a major violation, penalty up to 5 years imprisonment and a $250,000 fine.
So speaking of pleading for mercy, Hunter Biden is pleading to have your committee interview him in public, which is, of course, not the way depositions work. It doesn't look like you're going to grant that. Can you give us an update on that sort of hubris-filled letter that was shot out to the press? What's going to happen? Will Hunter Biden be deposed? What will be your first line of questioning, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, he will be deposed. And remember, we have 20,000+ pages of bank documents. We hope to have 82,000 pseudonym emails, thousands of which were sent to and from Biden and his associates from Joe Biden's fake email name on his government email. Remember, Joe Biden said he had a wall between his family schemes and the government. Well, that's not true. We've proven that with emails. We've proven that with depositions. So every investigation has a deposition. You can get hundreds and hundreds of questions in a deposition where you can only get a handful of questions in a public hearing. We'll have a public hearing, number one, after the deposition, because we have to ask specific questions. We're not talking about a dozen wires here. We're talking about dozens, plural, of suspicious wires from our enemies around the world to Biden that were then laundered through all these fake companies and ended up in the back pockets of 10 different Biden family members, including the sitting president of the United States. So this is very substantive. I know a lot of people want a hearing right now. That would be very entertaining to them. My job isn't to entertain the media or the American people. My job is to get the facts. And the only way you're going to get the facts with this many suspicious wire transfers is through a deposition. The deposition will be essentially public because after it's over with, we will release the transcript.
Yes. And you'll have another Adam Goldman, like sweating, peaked, transparent, nervous, having a clear nervous breakdown after the Devin Archer deposition. That's our favorite clips, is Adam Goldman being like trying to spin the Devin Archer deposition. And he lied. But your committee isn't lying, and we have these scalps. We have this list. I'm just going to go through them real fast, but we're going to pop them up. Like every single success that you've proven here, the $40,000 checks that you have shown, other $40,000 checks, $200,000 checks, outlines of the checks, the bank SAR reports, the bank saying, wait a second, this is a problem with American kids being captured by Chinese interests, direct payment outline, WhatsApp text messages. The evidence is preponderous at this point. And I mean, I believe that's probably why they're hitting the panic mode button and saying, hey, it's the Raptor that he smoked crack in. They're running out of excuses, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, nobody's buying this loan deal. One of the excuses on these last wires was, well, it wasn't that much. It was just $1,380 a month. You tell that to the average American who's struggling to buy groceries and put gas in their car and struggling to pay for Christmas presents for their kids and grandkids. The Bidens didn't pay taxes. They lived a lavish lifestyle off the backs of the taxpayers, not because they were receiving government salary, but because they were selling access to our government, to our enemies around the world. I think every working taxpaying American has a problem with that, and they expect us to finish this report. They expect all these people to sit down and be deposed, and for us to issue a final report and then determine what steps are necessary to hold this family accountable.
So speaking of holding families accountable, there is a line in the bank documents that you released that said, we know that the Chinese are trying to capture the children of American politicians. What do you read of that? That was quite startling. Probably the most startling line in the report.
Yeah, I mean, this particular bank, I'm not supposed to name the name of the bank, but this particular bank was a bank that would do a lot of transactions on a daily basis to and from China. So this wasn't like the little bank I was affiliated with or the bank that Byron Donalds was affiliated with. This was essentially an American bank, but with an international footprint. And they know, wait a minute. We've got to notify the Fed immediately because he's lying about what this $5 million was. It's clearly not a loan. They know how the Chinese operate, and this is a suspicious large sum of money to the Vice President of the United States' son, and his father is about to be the Democrat nominee for President of the United States. This is of the utmost concern to our national security. The bank did everything it was supposed to. The other banks did everything they were supposed to. Where the American people, where justice failed, was because you had high-ranking people at the Department of Justice, it looks like mainly Leslie Wolf, who told everyone to stand down. The Ways and Means Committee's meeting today with the IRS whistleblowers. They're going to release more information. These people bravely stepped forward and told the truth and told about the obstruction. So, you got two things here that Congress is looking at. You've got the actual crimes the Bidens have committed, which range from money laundering to securities fraud to be an unregistered foreign agent. And then you've got the cover-up by the government. Why wasn't this caught sooner? I mean, if our government had been working, the American people would have known about this before they stepped into the ballot boxes and voted for president in 2020.
Yes. And that is the subject, actually, of the question that we have from our Benny Brigade, from Elaine Harper, who has a question for you. Will there be similar proceedings to the one being brought against Biden, against Mayorkas or Wray, who seem to be doing so much daily to harm the country? I know that Christopher Wray will be sitting today in the House and answering questions. Mayorkas was brought up for impeachment, and that failed. Yeah. Your thoughts, sir?
Yeah, well, it was, the normal impeachment, a committee takes a lead in an investigation. In this instance, you have the Homeland Security that's doing that. Then they would refer it, I would assume, to Judiciary Committee, which is the committee that does the actual impeachment. So the handful of people that voted against it because they didn't follow the process. But look, I think I think it's pretty evident that Mayorkas has crossed the line and risked the lives of millions of Americans with the fentanyl that's pouring across the border, the human trafficking that's pouring across the border, and the massive cost to the taxpayers of the migrants that are crossing the border. The cost to the taxpayers, the cost to society. It's very alarming, and he should be held accountable because he's lied to Congress about the border being secure.
Yes. And this seems to be something that Speaker Johnson is going to be holding back Ukraine funding for our own border security. Your thoughts on that? That's breaking across, obviously, the internet this morning. Everyone's clutching their pearls. I'm asking, and I don't know how involved you are in this process, but I'm saying, why are we tying our border security to funding a foreign nation? That's insane. Like, what's going on? But yeah. I mean, it's little old me.
No, one of the most shocking things to me about where we are in Congress right now is the number of congressmen, and that would be Republicans and Democrats, senators and representatives, who this Ukraine issue is like the number one issue for them. And you've heard high-ranking senators say this is the most important issue in front of Congress. I do not agree with that. It wouldn't be in my top 10. I mean, we need an America first agenda. We need to always focus on America first, and continuing to send borrowed money to Ukraine in the form of a blank check with no transparency, no accountability, no oversight is not what very many Americans that I talk to want to see.
Yeah. I think that many Americans want to simply see the rules enforced equally. We really appreciate, obviously, your work holding the feet to the fire of the Bidens. A shockingly more egregious, more than just like the Chinese diamonds that were handed to Hunter, happened in the Senate right now. I mean, you could argue that what Bob Menendez is doing is as bad or worse. Bob Menendez still sits in the Senate. Bob Menendez was good friends, good buddies with Joe Biden. Do you think Joe Biden was like passing crib notes in the back with Bob and being like, yo, here's what you need. You need to get gold bars. The Egyptians, they're good for them. They can melt down all the stuff they found in the pyramids and they give you the gold bars. Like, do you think that Bob Menendez learned from Joe Biden?
I do. You know, he was a successor as chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee. I think that it's no secret to people like Bob Menendez that the Bidens have been influence peddling, that they've received money from our enemies around the world in exchange for foreign policy, in exchange for quid pro quo, like firing the prosecutor in Ukraine. I think that Jim Jordan makes a strong argument when he says that the Chinese saw what Joe Biden did as vice president in Ukraine and thought this would be a good investment for us in the future. Maybe Joe Biden can remove some of the barriers to entry for markets for the Chinese Communist Party of the United States, because, you know, we're having this fierce debate now over not letting China buy farmland and other things. Well, think about what the Bidens were going to do. According to Tony Bobulinski, CEFC was going to pour, hundreds of billions of dollars into American companies and start trying to purchase interest in American companies and buy things like farmland, real estate like farmland. Yes. So, this is no good. The American people have learned from our investigation that Joe Biden lied over 20 times about his knowledge, involvement, participation in, and benefit from his family's shady schemes with our enemies around the world.
Yes. And I have one final question for you, and we deeply appreciate you being a friend of the show and coming on and explaining these issues. We cover them. We've been covering them for years, and it's incredible to actually see somebody make some progress on this, which has been the most open obstruction and corruption that we've ever seen in American politics. Maybe we haven't been paying attention, but this is an anniversary, and this is probably a clip that's as near to your heart as it is to ours. The clip of Joe Biden saying, "Look fat," to an Iowa voter, to a portly Iowa voter, when he questioned this registered Democrat, questioned Joe Biden about the illegal payments from his son. And this happened 4 years ago today, and kind of shocked the world. Joe Biden challenges him to a push-up competition and said, "I never took a penny from any of my son's business dealings." And the guy nailed it, Mr. Chairman. The guy says, you set your son up at an oil company to make contributions and to make illegal money. This guy ended up nailing it 4 years ago, and Joe Biden called him fat and challenged him to a push-up competition. Your thoughts on this special anniversary?
Yeah, I mean, if that had been Donald Trump, the media would have been outraged. They would have been astonished at the behavior and maturity of someone in that position. Look, Joe Biden has been consistent his entire life. He's always been dishonest with the American people, from his days in college to just this week in the White House with his explanation of where these payments from Hunter Biden's shell company directly to Joe Biden's account. I mean, nothing he said about his knowledge, involvement, or participation or benefits from his family's shady influence peddling schemes has turned out to be true. We've proven that he's now benefited to the tune of $500,000 directly from his family's influence peddling scheme. If you make loans like they claim, which they have no evidence they were loans, but if you make loans, it's a pretty good feeling knowing it's going to be paid back through influence peddling. I mean, when he loans his son money for a car and his son's paying him back, where's his son getting the money? His only job is at that time taking wires from China. He's an unregistered foreign agent for China. Joe Biden knows this. He's getting paid back money that he supposedly lent to his son. He's receiving a benefit because he didn't lose the money he supposedly loaned. That is a benefit. So we've done everything we were supposed to do. We followed the money. We've tracked it to Joe Biden. We've showed him many times he's lied. I think we're going to have a good impeachment inquiry vote. We're going to have some good depositions of all these characters involved in these schemes. And then we're going to turn it over to the House Judiciary Committee for next steps.
Hey, man. I think that you could beat Joe Biden in a push-up competition, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, I would hope.
And an IQ test. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, so very much. Jamie Comer, a true champion of the American people. God bless you for actually getting something done in this Congress.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas.
You too.